Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is Tuesday, March 16th, 2021, and you know what that means. It's time to get nerdy. Our positive delight to have you here and to be sharing with you the video game, at least a video game adjacent stuff that's going on for the next hour. We're going to talk news, we're going to talk history, we're going to talk legalese, we're going to talk crowdfunding, we're going to try and hit it all, and we're going to need your help to do it. So welcome to episode 181. Quick thanks to our returning sponsor, Game Insider Magazine, and of course, you know him, you love him, the best co-host you could ever ask for, Mr. Nice Guy 425. And then there's me, Maction. So welcome to episode 181. Mr. Nice Guy, how you doing, man?
Dude, I'm doing fantastic, man. Life is so good right now, man. I'm excited for things to come. I'm excited for today's episode. And I'm excited for the past as well. That doesn't even make sense. But I needed a third thing, right? Rule of threes. I'm having a good week, and I'm excited to do the show, man. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Had some really fun stuff happen today. So, not to get too far into it, but both Mrs. the Mac and myself, we have jobs that mean we have to be person-facing. And we've been throughout this whole year and into the future. And to the point where we're both like in the phase of vaccine distribution, we're in like group 1B. So we're not in healthcare. So, and
you're not old, you're young, right?
Exactly. So we're in 1B because we've got to be front facing, but at the same time, you know, we're kind of high up on the list, which is great. But for whatever reason, we've not been getting updates on what's going on. And so we kind of strolled up to a pharmacy today and we're like, hey, look, we're 1B. We get it. You know, we don't want to take anything from anybody else. But if you've got some vaccine that's lying around and it's going to expire and you need it to go into somebody's veins, we volunteer as tribute. 2 hours later, they had Mrs. the Mac in there to get her first dose this afternoon.
That's fantastic.
Which just goes to show diplomacy can sometimes get you someplace, because they did say, they were like, hey, look, you're getting this because, you know, you're essential. You were nice and you didn't lie to us about being in a different group. So that's why you're getting good things, because you're good, because you did nice things. So I'm just like, yes, I feel like my entire life's philosophy has been validated in this moment. And so
yeah, just be nice to people and don't lie. That's all it takes, man. That is literally like the golden rule, in my opinion. I agree with you 100%. Hence the name, Mr. Nice Guy.
Yeah, exactly. Pinnacle of niceness over there. Practically the Bob Ross of niceness over there.
Painted portraits of niceness all day long. Mm-hmm. Well, Mac, I got nothing like crazy to share. So unless you have more stories, I say we do what we do best.
And hop right into that gaming news. Absolutely. Mr. Nice Guy, what interesting news have you heard in the video game landscape?
Well, let me tell you what I heard. Have you heard the news story about the bird?
Ooh, the bird is the word?
Yeah, the bird. Bird. Okay, copyright strike. I can't believe I just did that. So corny. Mac, this is episode 181 of Two Nerds in a Pod, nerdiest video game podcast in the galaxy. We have a plethora of news today, and none of it has to do with the bird.
Hey, Mr. Nice Guy.
Yeah.
What is a plethora?
A plethora? It's a lot.
Oh, okay.
A smorgasbord, if you will.
Sure. No, I was just hoping that, you know, that you would tell me that I had a plethora, and then I just didn't want to find out that you had no idea what it meant to have a plethora.
It's like a wide variety.
Okay.
And maybe you could even say an excess. I'm trying to think of like a bigger synonym for it, but I can't, because this is not a thesaurus.
It's true. It's not a thesaurus?
Thesaurus? It's not a thesaurus podcast. It's a video game podcast. Please edit out my stuttering. First news story comes from GameSpot.com by Eddie Macic about a new Dungeons & Dragons game coming June 22nd. The new D&D game Dark Alliance now has a release date, June 22nd. In addition to confirming the launch date, Wizards of the Coast released a gameplay trailer for the action RPG that provides an extended look at how the game plays. The trailer uses the Ozzy Osbourne song Straight to Hell, because of course it does, right? Which is quite fitting for the material in question. Dark Alliance is developed by Took Games, and this is the first D&D video game to be published by Wizards of the Coast. President Chris Cox says, "We're excited to expand beyond the tabletop and deliver a brand, I think it means to say brand new, brand type of D&D experience to longtime fans and new audiences." Mac, I watched the trailer. It appears that this is going to be a co-op game. It appears, and I could be wrong, but from just looking at the trailer, that's what it looks like. And so I guess for you and for anyone else in the chat, I know we have a few who are into role-playing games, tabletop RPGs. Does the premise of a video game in this universe appeal to you?
Well, I mean, D&D isn't so much a singular unified universe.
Yeah,
So,
good point.
I mean, I'm sure that there's something else, but I don't know as it appeals to me, right? But I don't know as it having the D&D attachment is exactly what appeals to me. I do think, however, that a video game that is based off of those types of tabletop principles can be good. We've seen it in things like Baldur's Gate, Knights of the Old Republic,
Yep,
even
for sure.
Fallout. Although, of course, I have to get in that little dig about how it was going to be GURPS before it was the special system. So yeah, but I mean, it can lead to some enduring and fantastic franchises. So I'm cautiously optimistic.
So I am too, and I watched the trailer and it looked like it was good. I like that Wizards of the Coast is backing it. Side question: do you ever spend time in Wizards of the Coast, the stores, or did they not have those where you grew up? I'm just
Um,
curious.
well, I
I
don't
used to love
recall.
going to them. I used
Uh,
to love, like, especially when Pokemon came out, Pokemon cards. I used to love going to Wizards of the Coast. So I was
So
just curious.
yeah, I don't recall ever setting foot inside of a Wizards of the Coast store. I
Yeah.
don't know if that was they weren't around, or I didn't have money, or if my parents were caught up in the satanic panic thing at the time, which, there's a story there, but this is about video games. We'll return to that story some other time.
Post show.
Post show.
Cool. Well, you know what's interesting about this? Obviously, you're not rolling die, right, in the
Mhm.
game, and to me, that's a major part of D&D. But when you think about it, like a lot of these video games, like you mentioned Fallout, a lot of the outcomes are based on probability, right? You level up your character, you get different traits. It gives he or she or it, right, the ability to hit certain shots, to get certain item drops, based on different in-game systems, right? And so I think that all games have more D&D elements than we actually think. It'll be interesting to see how they incorporate it into this. As I watched the video, my first thought was this looks like Destiny 2, but with a D&D vibe, like with orcs and goblins.
So if you could walk me through it real quick. You say it looks kind of like it might be co-op, it D&D based. Are we talking like Diablo style hovering overhead? Is it more behind? Are they looking
It
more
was
like
more,
Resident Evil
yeah,
5?
it's a great question. It was more like third person type of stuff.
Okay.
So like a Destiny 2, or like your typical RPG,
Oh, okay.
where you have a third person view, like a Fallout type of view. But
Gotcha.
I
So
would say
that's
it was
where you were
probably zoomed
going.
out. Yeah, it was probably zoomed out like a little bit more than those types of games. So you're seeing your whole character back
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to just like an over the shoulder. But it looked really, really good. And it looked like it was a lot of like raids and, fighting big monsters and stuff. So what did Metzgirl say? She said, because she's into that stuff. She said, I don't really know that it's going to be interesting because it's TTRPG related. Yeah, it's hard when they try to put this stuff in video game form. We'll have to see what happens. Well, Mac, next news story of the week. This is from also GameSpot.com by Eddie Macic. It's about Microsoft Xbox Game Pass. They have a lot of good games coming up, and I'm going to call you out in just a minute, Mac, on this whole Game Pass thing. Microsoft has announced all the new additions to Xbox Game Pass over the next couple weeks, and there are some high-profile titles headed to the catalog, including one major surprise. Square Enix's RPG Octopath Traveler. This is big news. is coming to Xbox Game Pass on console and PC on March 25th. Previously released on Switch and PC as well as Stadia. It was a Switch exclusive for a while, I want to note. The game takes players to the mysterious world of Oros Terra, where they experience the stories of 8 travelers. Let's skip down to what games they have coming up. Undertale. Mac, did you ever play Undertale? It's
I
kind of like an indie.
I am familiar with Undertale. I have not played it.
No worries. I haven't played it either, but I heard that it's worth a play. So, Undertale coming on, it's out now actually on console, PC, and cloud. Empire of Sin, March 18th. Nier Automata, Star Wars Squadrons as well, and Torchlight 3, all March 18th. March 25th, Octopath Traveler, Genesis Noir, Pillars of Eternity, Superland, Yakuza 4, and then they got some more. There's a new game called Outriders that's going to be coming out on Game Pass day one. Mac, we also have all the Bethesda stuff, the old Fallouts, Morrowind, et cetera, et cetera. Dishonored. All of these games on Game Pass. Can you really call yourself a gamer? Can one call themselves a gamer at this point if they do not have a Game Pass subscription, especially, Mac, when you do not have to have a console to have Game Pass? You could be PC Master Race. I feel like there's no excuse. Weigh in.
To the question that was posed, can one call oneself a gamer without having Game Pass? Yes. Now, there is no doubt that there are some fantastic games that are available, and that I'm sure that library will continue. Octopath Traveler, I actually love the sprite work in Octopath Traveler.
Gorgeous.
Beautiful. It very much evokes the Final Fantasy Tactics style of sprites that I enjoy so much. So I love it. I very much look forward to playing it myself. I will buy it for sure, especially now that it's going to be coming to PC and consoles. But I mean, I'm still not all in for Game Pass. It's a fantastic value. There's no doubt about that. But as is, my backlog is just so big of games. The overload from having new games every month, that is a recipe for me committing to never finishing a game ever again.
Interesting theory. So you're not questioning the value. You're acknowledging the value, but you're basically saying,
I feel like he's trying to trap me here.
well, no, I'm not.
It's just let's just be clear. You're acknowledging the value here. Would you say that's correct, sir? Now, let me remind you, you have testified. You have sworn to tell the truth.
Yeah. No, and this is not like let me prove Mac wrong or anything. But
really, I thought you opened with you were going to call me out.
No, you just inspired another point of conversation with your statement, which is that you have such a big backlog you can't justify getting Game Pass, right? Because you'll never finish another game. But yet you kickstart games.
Indeed, but let's not forget that the trailing time is I'm putting that quarter down, and I know that I'm not going to be up next to the joystick for another 2 years. So I feel like that's very much, and it's not a constant pile, it's a 2-year investment in the future, and I feel like that's something I can definitely handle.
Okay, fair. We will move on from this point. But I'll say this, and Mac acknowledged this as well. Game Pass, one of, if not the best values in gaming. If you're into games, I think, if you have a PC or an Xbox, I think it's worth a look if you don't have it already.
Now, real quick, before we depart from the overall value proposition of Game Pass, I do want to say that one thing I don't know that I desperately want to know is what is the developer cut of revenue from Game Pass when their game gets on Game Pass.
And I honestly don't know.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about it. I haven't seen anything on it. And I want to know because it might be a great value, but I would feel conflicted if it meant less revenue for the studio who built it. Anyway, just my last 2 cents on
Yeah, but so it's interesting you bring that up because a lot of the games that come up have already been out for a while. Like we got Red Dead Redemption, we got GTA 5, we're getting all these old Bethesda games. So I feel like it's kind of a way to bring new life to games that maybe aren't getting as much attention as they could. Now GTA 5, obviously, that's not the case.
Sure.
But some of those other games, it brings new life to the community, putting them on Game Pass. So Anyway, moving on. So much news this week. Let's talk about Microsoft again. This is on IGN.com by Matt T.M. Kim. A Microsoft spokesperson has told IGN that VR is not coming to the Xbox Series X and S at this time, after it was reported the Xbox console referred to a VR peripheral. IGN Italy reported that while testing the new Xbox wireless headset, a prompt appeared on their Xbox Series X system saying their VR headset needs an update. This suggests the Xbox Series X supports VR peripherals in some capacity. Bottom line, Mac, a Microsoft spokesperson, said the copy in this error message is inaccurate due to localization bug. VR for console is not a focus for us at this time. So we've talked about VR so much on here. I've even talked to friends who play it. We all acknowledge that it's pretty cool at its best, and it's starting to become more widespread and more accessible. Is this a missed opportunity for Microsoft, especially when we know that Sony's working on it?
I'm inclined to say yes. My experience with VR is very vastly inferior to yours. Namely, I don't have a sweet VR headset, and my only experience was just that one fantastic time that we went to that game convention together. But nonetheless, it still seems like a missed opportunity, especially because I wonder how easy it would have been for Microsoft to secure the ability to get Half-Life Alyx going on the Xbox. Yeah, because as far as I'm aware, there are no other platforms other than PC that Half-Life Alyx is available on. Yes.
That's 100% right. And, we all saw what happened with the Game Awards. Half-Life Alyx did not win. And for anyone who has played it, it's a crying shame that it did not win. So it was due to the lack of accessibility. You're right. Xbox or PlayStation potentially getting that game would give such a wider audience the opportunity to play it. So I think it's unfortunate. And I agree that it is a missed opportunity. But at the same time, I feel like Microsoft, of all companies, cannot afford to spread themselves too thin this gen. They really got whooped last gen. And if they just want to focus on making good games and on Game Pass, then do that. So I respect that they're not working on Game Pass stuff right now. For the sake of time, that has been our news for the week.
All right. Well, now we're going to turn our eyes back into the past, a little bit of video game history. This was a good week in video game history because I have several very fantastic games to share. Some of them may mean a little something special to you. We'll start with the one furthest in the past. Released this week in 1999 for the PC, we have EverQuest. 27 expansions since it was released. The most recent one, that 27th expansion, released just this last December, if I'm not mistaken. A game that has shifted the landscape, a game that absolutely was a huge part of growing up. Now, I was always a little bit too young to get in on EverQuest, just a bit. It was always like my older brother's friends that were all into EverQuest and all had, the posters and such. But EverQuest, yeah. Oof. Mr. Nice Guy, I don't know if you've got anything particular to say.
No experience, but it's basically an MMO, right?
Yeah, it is an MMO. It has all those qualities that we've come to associate with MMOs, that it helped pioneer the genre. One of the things that I am familiar with, because as you all know, I am contractually obligated to talk about legal stuff here on this podcast, that there was one of the early lawsuits surrounding the sale of in-game items for cash was started around around EverQuest. I don't think it ever really got that much traction, but and as a matter of fact, I don't think it ever really made it to court, but I know that there was definitely some injunctive back and forth. But anyway, that was 1999, released for the PC. Now, this next one, much more near and dear to my heart, released in 2004 for the OG Xbox. We're talking about Breakdown. Now, in Breakdown, It is a first person. It is a first person shooter, but it also is a first person fighting game. It's this sort of sci-fi time traveling game for the original Xbox. It a lot of the background art and assets were not especially detailed, and that's kind of painfully apparent when you go back and play it now. But it had an interesting sci-fi story, and there were, of course, people that you were fighting. You'd pull out and you'd gun, you'd shoot, all that kind of stuff like you normally would.
I like how you said that. You'd gun, you'd knife, you'd
Um,
block.
Interestingly enough, I believe it was one of the NPCs in the game who has a knife rather than you. But at some point in time, you've basically, I don't want to say go Super Saiyan, but that's kind of how it is. And you would fight and you would, beat people up. There were actually some enemies that you had to go hand to hand in order to beat them. You couldn't use your weapons, and it was definitely interesting. It was the first time that I ever experienced a game trying to take the hand to hand and cram it into a first person view. And while there were plenty of times where it was frustrating and and I died a lot, I loved it. I still love it. I still have a copy, and I still do occasionally crack it out to play and relive some of the old times. Another one near and dear to my heart, and perhaps to yours as well. In 2009, this week we saw the release on PS3 and Xbox 360 of Resident Evil 5. So Resident Evil 5 was my return to the Resident Evil franchise. I had been in on Resident Evil in Resident Evil 2, and then I didn't bother very much with 3, definitely not 4 until well after the fact. But 5, the ability to play co-op changed the genre entirely for me. I know you're smirking. I see your smirk, Mr. Nice Guy, and I know what you're thinking.
What am I thinking?
You're thinking, man, Mac, when you played Resident Evil 2, you were too scared to handle the music because you've heard the story.
I have heard the story.
And now in Resident Evil 5, you couldn't handle the horror of playing it on your own, so you needed the buddy system. And you know what? Yeah.
I've been there. There's games that did that to me. I get it. For real. I get it.
Fair. Anyway, I enjoyed Resident Evil 5. Was that one of your games, Mr. Nice Guy?
It wasn't, but I mean, I've played games that scared me. The first Splinter Cell, or maybe it was the second one, just the music that used to come on when you were getting chased by baddies would terrify me. And playing The Last of Us Part 2 with sound, right? It freaked me out. So I get it. I get where you're coming from.
But will anything compare to the original Halo when the flood came for the first time?
No, absolutely not.
Terrifying. Moving right along, this one perhaps might be a bit more in your wheelhouse. Released in 2012 for the PS3, Journey.
I have it, and I've played it briefly, very briefly, so I can't speak to it, but I've heard nothing but good things.
And you know me, I didn't have a PlayStation 3, and I've not played Journey. It was an exclusive, however, again, very much, I've heard so many good things. But for those of you who have it, maybe now is a good time to dust that off and put it in your PlayStation because, hey, gotta celebrate that birthday somehow. And then the last one, and again, this might be just a slightly disappointing because I don't have much to say about it other than celebrate its birthday 2015 for PC and the Xbox One, Ori and the Blind Forest.
Fantastic game.
Yeah?
Yeah, you know what? So I really like Metroidvanias, as you do. And Ori and the Blind Forest and Ori and the Will of the Wisps, in my mind, are some of the better Metroidvania games that exist.
How do they compare with Hollow Knight?
Dude, I mean, they can't touch Hollow Knight. Like, to me, Hollow Knight is untouchable. Like, short of Metroid, Super Metroid, or like some of the really, really good Castlevanias, I feel like there's just not a lot that could touch Hollow Knight. But Ori and Will of the Wisps is like B tier, or like right below the Hollow Knight tier.
So
it's good.
Would you, of Hollow Knight, say can't touch this?
I would not say that,
Hmm.
but I agree with that sentiment. Yeah.
Okay, okay. And I'm glad to hear that some of you, especially Jonah, is such a fan of Ori, of the Ori thing. And
Yeah.
that's why it's got to get a mention. I know I don't have exactly the memories for it, but it's definitely worth celebrating its birthday as it becomes 6 years old enough to go to kindergarten. That's great. But that's what I had, Mr. Nice Guy, for some video game history this week.
Nice. Well, let's talk about something relevant in gaming and give our opinions on it for our topic of the week. Mac, this one, I feel like sometimes we beat up on major companies a little too much, but I feel like
But
that's
do
okay.
we?
I feel like they beat up on the little guy sometimes. And today we're going to talk a little bit about that. This is from IGN.com by Wesley LeBlanc. It's about one of our favorite companies to talk about. And let us know your thoughts in the chat. Activision Blizzard has reportedly laid off 190 employees, including 50 employees from the company's esports division. Bloomberg reports that layoffs affected less than 2% of the company's employees. 2% translates to roughly 190 employees. 50 of those employees worked in the esports division. Here's the thing, Mac, the kicker. U.S. workers laid off will receive a minimum of 90 days of severance and health benefits for up to 1 year, according to Bloomberg. And each employee laid off was given a $200 credit in gift cards to Battle.net, which is the company's online video game storefront.
Fantastic. So we can use that in the company store, can we?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like the company fired you, but they gave you money to give right back to them.
So can
Kind
I
of,
buy
right?
armor for my horse with that?
You know what? You could buy loot boxes in Overwatch with that. So, I mean, who needs a job when you got that?
It's true.
Um,
Yeah. Oh, what? Oh no, we buy loot boxes. Here you go. Here's your gift cards. I hope that feeds you and puts a roof over your head.
there's this joke by Aziz Ansari where I like that reference you just did, by the way. I
Yes,
totally
because
get
that's
it.
a reference to Mr. Nice Guy's comedy special, the first
Y-
option,
Yeah.
which you should all watch, by the way, if you haven't already.
I can't wait till COVID's over so I can record another one, and maybe it'll be called the second option. But anyway, this whole situation reminds me of this joke by Aziz Ansari where he's talking about how he was drinking in this club, hanging out with Jay Z and some other people. Jay Z owned the club, so it's like Jay Z bought a bunch of bottles for the whole table, and then he like tipped the waiter, and it was like Jay Z was like spending money and watched the money go right back in his pocket. Like that's the joke because he owned the club, right?
Mhm.
And I feel like that's what's happening with Activision here. Like they're giving people gift cards to go spend in their own store. So it's really not a gift. Like I feel like this is a slap in the face. But Mac, here's my wider question for you about this. I mean, Bobby Kotick, one of probably the most disliked CEOs in gaming. Activision, one of what's viewed as more money hungry CEOs. At a time like this, do you think that CEOs need to step up, gaming or otherwise, and say, you know what? I want to help these people keep their jobs. And to me, it's pennies. Like, is that something CEOs should do, or what do you think?
Well, I mean, I appreciate the softball question,
Well,
because
no, maybe you don't think that. That's why I'm asking.
oh, Mr. Nice Guy, to your question about if I think they should be helping, yes. And I think it's one of those things which is kind of a little bit ridiculous because the optics on such on a move like this are incredibly bad, and the optics on not doing that are so much better.
Well, here's if I'm gonna play devil's advocate, right?
Please, please, the
Like
devil needs an advocate.
looking at it from a business perspective, like, well, actually, no, that doesn't even make sense. I can't even make that point. I was gonna say esport events aren't happening right now, so maybe they need less employees. But the reality is, esports events are still happening because they're being done virtually. So maybe they don't need people to plan the in-person events for teams to compete. But I can't help but think that once this is all over, that they're gonna need those esports employees around, right? So rather than going through the expense of firing, 50 esports people and then having to rehire and retrain people once this stuff picks up, to me, it makes sense to say, hey, let's keep paying them. We make a lot of money. Call of Duty is a hit every year. Our CEO could maybe take a pay cut, and we can keep these people on during this tough time for our nation, right? I don't know. To me, that seems obvious, but
Yeah, dude, you're going to get no real opposite view on this one. I mean, I'm 100% in agreement with you. I don't know what they're thinking, and I wonder, I mean, this is a sort of thing where it seems so counterintuitive to be making this decision. The optics are so bad. It almost makes me wonder if there's something wrong at Activision, if there's some kind of financial crunch that they're in. I believe that we had seen figures throughout the past year or two, well, year and change, that video games were a sector, a market that was doing quite well because people were buying a lot of video games.
yeah, staying at home, right?
And it seemed to me like everything was, but maybe Activision has fallen behind in such a big way that they had to. I
Well,
don't
no,
know.
no, they have Call of Duty every year. They have recurring revenue from World of Warcraft, right? People that have those subscriptions and have had them for decades, and so I cannot believe that Activision is struggling financially. Like in fact, I know that's not the fact just from reading reports.
Okay, yeah.
Um,
No, I agree. I would, and this again, everybody is you want to refute Mac's crazy, wild up in the night antics, then read your financial statements and your quarterly reports and tell Mac he's wrong. But yeah, no, I just that's the only kind of narrative I can come up with that makes sense to kind of balance out the bad optics of the situation, but maybe they just don't care. That
yeah, and
seems what it's like.
we're not gonna beat a dead horse anymore. Like Activision makes dope games. It's unfortunate that these people lost their jobs. We'll leave
Yeah.
it at that. That has been our topic of the week.
All right, well, now we turn to a little thing that we call Kick or Kickstart. And the idea here is that we've got a crowdfunding project that's trying to get off the ground. We're going to post a link in the chat. We're going to take a look at it together, some of us for the first time, me for not the first time, and we're going to talk about what we think the virtues and the vices are, and then at the end, we're going to say kick or kickstart. And we encourage you guys here with us to throw that in the chat. Tell us what you think, whether this is worth the money, kickstart it, or whether, not your thing. And kick it out of here, and also feel free to tell us why. Now, this one's going to be a little bit different. I am posting the link now. This is going to be different because this is not quite as much of a kick or kickstart as I really want to take you guys on the journey with me. So I have this game for you, Immortal Gates of Pyre by Sunspear Games. It's a free-to-play, real-time strategy MOBA, game. I know what you're thinking. That is supposed to be dead simple for new players and complex enough for top-tier play. The alpha is to be released in September of this year, beta in June of 2020. So it's a free-to-play game, right? So what's with this kickstarting? What's the funding based on? Basically unlocks, beta keys if you want into that sort of thing, and Immortal tokens for unlocking random champions, I guess. But here's where the journey begins, dear listener. It launched March 9th and was canceled very quickly. But in that time that it was briefly up, it managed to have $275 pledged in that very brief moment. And then it launched again yesterday, needing 31K to get funded. So obviously somebody just, clicked launch a little bit too early. But 275, that's surprising to get super fast. And then when they launched again there. Now, again, journey here. So for a bit of time, I was very concerned that this was some kind of a scam. Now, the reason being is that the last thing I do when I'm looking at a Kickstarter is watching the video. I always start by reading and often by doing some quick math. So at the time I found it, it had been up for just a little bit more than 3 hours. It already had the Project We Love flair from Kickstarter and was a mere $100 from being funded. And while I was crunching my numbers and watching it, it broke the funding goal. So at the time that I was watching it, yesterday, it'd been up for 3 hours, it had 268 backers, with the modal backer, that means the most common backer level, was the $50 tier. Outdoing the entry-level $25 tier by a quarter. By 30, a quarter percent. It was,
Percent.
25% more. The average backer of this free-to-play game was backing at $102. For those of you with some quick calculator fingers, that's only 268 multiplied by $102 is only $27,465, which means that the nearly $4,000 in difference in funding from the pledge tiers had to have been made up by no fewer than 767 $5 add-on purchases of cosmetic banners that they were selling for the in-game characters. In 4 hours, under 4 hours. And that seemed suspicious to me at first glance.
I agree.
Right?
It
So,
does.
Then I had to wonder, who are these gods of marketing that can take a company with no product ever produced and get this kind of response? To read the Kickstarter page, it's a quote, "The founders of Sunspear Games met nearly a decade ago on teamliquid.net," end quote. Okay, so who are they? Does that mean that they're fans of Team Liquid? That they're mods of Team Liquid? That they're actually pro gamers? I'll quote again, quote, "Much of our creative team hails from the Skywind community," end quote. Quote, okay, but who? Who from the Skywind community? And then I'm following links, right? The Twitter account had 20 tweets and 400 followers. So what, 70% of their Twitter followers were also backers? That's the kind of return on investment that makes me think of insider trading, okay? Facebook page, their posts have single digits likes and shares, every one of them until their launch. But they have 36,000 followers on Facebook? Their Twitch page has 400 followers, and they get this kind of return? I don't know if I'm just too out of the scene to understand, but their social media presence just didn't seem all that robust from what I could see. And it was just weird. So all sorts of alarm bells are going off in my head, right? And then I watched the video. In the video, they show off esports player Jack Attack, and I'm thinking, I don't know who this guy is, but I've heard the handle before, so that means he has to be incredibly popular. So maybe that explains it. Kevin Wagner, he's the CEO, and he's been the CEO of this Sunspear Games for the past 4 years. And at one point, he was VP at Toshiba. Before that, for 15 years, he was working at AMD in various directorial and manager things, right? Yeah. So at moments in this journey, I thought it was for sure, I'm just like, this is some huge grift. But the fact of the matter is that there are some real people with real chops that are working on it behind the scenes. However, what became clear is this journey that started off with just this is too good to be true, this is a grift, became, oh, maybe they are real people. Well, the grift is that it's a situation where, once again, we have a medium-sized studio, which has been around since 2016, putting out this a project, trying to make itself look like a startup and asking for money, which, for the record, they received $1 million on the 9th of March from investments. So I'm not a fan. Again, I'm like, you clearly have more than $1 million. You are at least a $1 million studio. And Kickstarter is not for those big sorts of things to be doing. This is a different type of platform for smaller companies to get there. I'm not a fan. I say kick it. I'll play it for free since it's a free-to-play game when it comes out. There's my journey, Mr. Nice Guy.
I mean, yeah, I didn't have this kind of time to study it. This is my first time seeing this. I think that it is unacceptable to kickstart a free-to-play game. I think that's unacceptable. It's going to be free-to-play, and the way that you're going to make your money is going to be through microtransactions.
And, it seemed to me, I was willing to go with them because, free-to-play games have to be developed somehow. They need money to get going somehow. But, you guys had already received $1 million. I could track that. I went to LinkedIn and found out that they had got $1 million. I found it through LinkedIn that they had received $1 million investment before their Kickstarter thing started up. Just and yet somehow you desperately need these sweet Kickstarter bucks
from innocent people.
Well, and and again, all these things about it's just I actually broke down the math a lot more, but still it came down to that where I was like, where I was like, how on earth do you get so much money so fast? And I mean, maybe it's Jack Attack, maybe it's these big titans of the industry that are bringing stuff to bear, but just like, no, that's too fast, too much for a
Yeah,
free-to-play game. The modal launch, the average backer was backing at $102 for a free-to-play game. I'm just
yeah,
saying.
I can't believe it. And I mean, once again, you've really summed it up better than I could. It's free to play. They're going to make the money once the game comes out. I get that you got to eat, but come on. That's all I got
Well,
to say
you
about
don't
it.
need to be begging just to eat when you've got $1 million
Please,
in the
sir,
bank.
may I have some more?
Yeah. So, definitely kick it from me. Sounds like kick it from
Was there a
you.
playable demo? I'm curious.
No,
It's
there is
already
no
out though,
playable
huh?
demo. Of course there's no playable demo. Are you kidding me? They
Never
wouldn't
know.
give me that.
I would kick this one as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, let us know what you guys think in the chat. And those of you who are listening to this podcast after the fact, just shout it out loud. We're tabulating results from here.
All right. Well, it is time for Nerdflex. Woo!
Woohoo.
A segment where you, the viewers, try to stump the hosts, or we use questions from the test bank. And Mac, I think this week we will probably end up doing some questions from the test bank, which is totally cool. And we'll do the random selection. Last week, did we go 0 for 3?
Yes. However, we justified it to ourselves by saying that it was very informative and educational. So we didn't quite mind going 0 to 3 because it was all stuff that we didn't even kind of know.
But it was fun because we learned some new stuff. So if you are here live, get those questions in, preferably gaming. Well, I mean, it has to be gaming related, preferably multiple choice. Here is our first question of the week. Sega question. Sega. Which Castlevania game was ported to the Saturn?
We've
Which
actually already
Castlevania?
done this one before.
Have we done this
We
one?
have. I'm sorry, I didn't delete it from the test bank.
Okay. Okay, here's one that we may not know the answer to, but it will be fun to learn. FPS question, Matt. What is the name of the hardest difficulty setting in Duke Nukem 3D?
Oh, if only the question had been Doom, because it's I am Death incarnate in Doom. Oh gosh,
Do you think
or is
it's
that
maybe a
Wolfenstein
parody?
3D?
Do you think it's maybe a parody of that?
Um,
I am Duke incarnate.
could
That
be.
could be it. I'm going with I am Duke incarnate.
And I'll go with you on that one because I don't have a better one.
Okay, let's see what we got here. It's Damn I'm Good.
Damn, I'm good.
That's the name.
Well, it's not
We
off
learned
to a
something. We learned something new. That's the important thing.
True. We're not off to a great start, but I feel confident that we can pull it together in the end. Now, we do have a question in the chat. Should I go for that?
Do it, buddy. Do it.
All right. Metzgirl asks, which character floats in Super Mario 2? Is it A, Mario, B, Luigi, C, Toad, or D, Peach?
I know this one. Do you know this one?
I do know this one. So we'll say it at the same time. Ready? Our answer. 1, 2, 3. Peach.
Peach. Yep. Peach floats
Yep. So
because she has the dress with the magical floating powers. Who was your favorite character to use in that game?
so I tended to use Luigi. I liked his his jumping, the height of his jump. It was a touch unwieldy to get to learn how to use Luigi, but once you kind of lock him down, his high jump is pretty good. Of course, Toad, man, that dig speed. Ooh, mwah.
Yeah,
Mario
he can
good
make
all
stuff
around,
cool.
yeah. But yeah, it's
And the
it's pretty
answer was indeed Peach.
nice.
So we are 1 for 1. Last question for the week. Final Fantasy.
Ooh.
And I need to play a Final Fantasy game. I feel
Yeah.
like
I
But
have
I've
got a
never.
question for you, Mr. Nice Guy. Do you
Yeah.
think you can call yourself a gamer having not played a single Final Fantasy game?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do think I can call
Mhm.
myself a gamer.
Okay.
We'll move on. Mac, we all need to get Mac a year of Game Pass for the holiday season. Final Fantasy question: what is Eris's level 4 limit break? Do you play Final Fantasy? I thought you knew, so I was like, oh, this one will work. Not that I chose it; it popped up randomly, but I was like, oh,
So
he'll know.
so that's Final Fantasy VII. Everybody seems to love Final Fantasy VII. I did not like Final Fantasy VII. Um, gosh, Eris's level 7 limit break. I remember Cloud's limit breaks. There was Cross Slash. There was Braver. There was Knights of the Round. Eris. I don't know. I feel like Healing Wind or something.
Healing Wind. Interesting.
I have no confidence in it, but I feel like Healing Wind is the only thing I can think of. Watch, that's going to be like a Renoa limit break from Final Fantasy VIII or something.
I'm
But
just gonna go with Healing Wind with you because I have no idea. Oh, and we were totally off. It was Great Gospel, which I don't know what that is as
Great
a superpower.
Gospel. Yeah, so like in Eris or Aerith, depending upon the way, which localization you're going for, you first meet her in like an old abandoned church.
Okay.
And I feel like I forget what level she's at when you get her. It might be one of her like intro things, but I think that's some sort of connection to that abandoned church. But that's just me speculating.
It's all right. Well, hey, we got one, so 1 out of 3
It's
ain't
true.
bad.
It's true. Not too shabby. Hopefully you guys will be able to stump us next time. And don't forget there are sound tests out there, which if you can correctly identify those on Twitter, you might get a handmade perler or a Two Nerds in a Pod pin for
Ooh.
yourself.
All right, that's been Nerdflex.
All right. Well, now we like to turn to a little bit of legalese.
Legalese.
So, obviously, the law, especially as we're talking about how games are now online, always online, servers, copyright disputes, the law plays a much larger role in video games than it arguably ever has before. And so we want to help you at least try and understand some of the stuff that's going on. And we're going to do a little bit of a revisit. Epic versus all the platforms. Now, it seems like there's a little bit of new stuff on this front every week, and while we've covered this in great detail in episodes 136, 153, and 156, I wanted to briefly revisit the legal drama that's going on over here. Not because I think we need a reiteration on the case itself. Not enough really has changed. And it's going to be in legal limbo for quite some time because the wheels of justice move slowly. But because I think this whole saga has actually already had a pretty positive effect. In order to pay the piper, as it were, for being on their platforms, Google, Apple, so on, these places have asked for a 30% cut of the in-app purchasing. And of course, purchases that are made have to be made exclusively through their store. So if you're on Apple, right, you are required by your contract to have your in-app purchases going on through their payment processing, from which they take their 30% cut. And this all got started because Epic willingly and wittingly broke their contract and started this whole kerfuffle going on. And that's not me editorializing. Those are the facts that when they went with their stuff, they do not deny the facts of the facts there. That's something they are willing to, they said, yeah, nope, that's 100% the truth. No argument at all. Anybody who says other than that, just engaging in fanboyism on one side or another, just FYI. And, oh man, here I said I wasn't going to revisit the thing. Okay, so...
Here we go.
No. So, probably as a result of all the attention that these lawsuits that are going on right now between Epic and all the various platforms, has been shedding, the attention it's been shedding on the contracts. Now people have seen behind the curtain. They know what's going on with this 30%. Probably as a result, Google is dropping their cut from 30% down to 15% for dollars made up until the $1 million mark in that year. And then it's back to 30% for money over $1 million within that year in profits. Now, it's not often that we can go to a lawsuit that is still in progress and trace positive changes before the case is decided. And those of you who maybe might be thinking, hey, couldn't this just be chalked up to Google wanting to moot the case? After all, that was a little bit of some of the brouhaha that was being made when Epic was just like, 30% cut, this is crazy. But number one, the 30% turned out to be kind of industry standard, depending upon how tightly you sliced the pie for what constituted industry there. And they sure did a lot of attempts to try and slice that pie awfully thinly for their court cases. But, we'll get
Happy Pie Day, everybody.
Oh, yes,
Belated.
Happy Pie Day. Strawberry rhubarb for me. So, but, you know me. Ever the shill for the game devs, I am happy that more money will, in theory, be going back to them. Oh, right. Sorry, I almost forgot. So, yeah, about them mooting the case, right? It's probably not the case because Epic, in their amended complaint, actually dropped that talk about 30%. So, it's not even still in there. So mooting that can't actually decrease the strength of the argument in court anymore. So it's not like that's the sneaky tactic, the one weird trick that they're trying to do. Well, I don't understand. It's not something that's controlling anymore, so you can't get relief. Da, da, da. But, as anyway, point being, in theory, more money will be going, 15% more will be going to the people who made the game, and I think that's good. I think that's a good move forward and a good step forward. And I'm glad that even though we're still waiting on this, that we've got some positive impacts already happening. So yeah,
people who make stuff should get stuff, right?
I
They should
agree.
get the money.
I agree. And that's just been a little bit of legalese.
Nice. Before we go, ladies and gentlemen, we have one last thing we like to do called What We've Been Watching and What We've Been Playing, where we talk about just that cool, nerdy stuff we've been into on Netflix, on Hulu, on YouTube, on Disney Plus, if you're Maction, and the games we've been playing on our consoles, on our mobile devices, on our PCs, and other places. And if you're here live, you have a job to do, let us know in the chat what you've been playing and watching, because we're always looking for nerdy stuff to get into. Mac, how about you, man? What you been into this week?
Oh, man. So I started watching Dairy Girls on Netflix again.
What is that?
Dairy Girls is a group of girls that go in Ireland that go to a Catholic school. It's in the 90s. It's hilarious. It's the comedic timing's great. Mr. Nice Guy, you just have to watch it.
Oh, every time you say this, I think it's going to be about like people who live on a farm.
Why would it
like
be?
I totally misunderstood. Like I literally misunderstood because you said Dairy Girls. I was like, this does not sound interesting at all.
Yeah, no, the name of the town's Derry. They're in Ireland.
Derry?
Yeah, Derry.
Yeah, not like dairy, like milking cows. That's what I thought.
Yeah,
Was.
None of that.
Okay.
It's good. It's irreverent. It's wonderful. I love it. And it's great. If you liked Father Ted, you will enjoy Dairy Girls. At least I think you will. Also been watching Mandalorian season 2. Haven't quite finished it yet. And, some Stargate to relax to, as well as that repair shop that I mentioned last week. So that's what I've been watching. As for playing, I've been playing a little bit of Strider on the NES, some Chasm on the PC. Really sharpening, getting the rust off of de-rusting, as they would say, for a thing that's upcoming.
Nice. So I have been playing some good stuff. I've been playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla on the PlayStation 5, doing some Among Us with friends. Mac, I wish you would just give it a shot. We've been having so much fun. getting big groups together from the Discord and just playing Among Us and having a blast. I know you don't like that type of game, but it's just fun. It's just fun. What else? Did I mention GURPS already? And then Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I think that's mostly what I've been playing. As far as what I've been watching, The Walking Dead is back, and I've been getting caught up on those episodes. I'm enjoying them. And so much, so much. I can't even remember it all. But those are the highlights. Mac, what are people in the chat
Uh,
into?
we'll tell you what, I'll take watching. So Mets Girl is watching WandaVision, SG1, Monty Python's Flying Circus, and us. Woo! Uncle
Hey,
Ruckus is watching The Sopranos, The Simpsons, Contraband, and looking into the Oceans series. I'm assuming Oceans 11, 9, 13, so
oh,
on.
you're gonna love it.
And that's what I see for watching so far. Still a couple people who haven't responded yet, but we'll get them.
As far as playing, we got Ruckus. I don't know why I did that pregnant pause right there. Ruckus is playing Valheim Half-Life Alex. He beat the game and it was amazing. No spoilers for those who have not played it, please, Ruckus. But yes, it was amazing. I agree. Madden 21, MLB 2K12, and Payday 2. Mets Girl playing Dungeons and Dragons. Also playing GURPS and whatnot. And Kane is playing Stardew Valley, Pathfinder, Mechton Zeta, and Scion. And that is it, Mac. Why don't you do the honors of taking us home, man?
Well, thank you everyone for coming out to episode 181 of Two Nerds in a Pod. Y'all are the best. You're the best viewers, you're the best listeners, you're the best community. We just enjoy the heck out of you, and we hope you've enjoyed being here with us. Be sure to tune in Tuesdays, 8 p.m. Mountain, 9 p.m. Central, twitch.tv/Two Nerds in a Pod, and be here for the live recording, and be able to put in the trivia. Be able to give us some feedback on what you think of what's going on in the topic of the week. We know we'd love to hear from you, hopefully as much as you enjoy hearing from us. So be excellent to each other, stay safe, and keep it nerdy. See ya.
Bye.
Nice. All
Outro?
right.